Welcome to the show that takes up no more than 5 minutes of your time, but could help you gain massive real estate knowledge. It's 5 Minutes in Real Estate with best-selling author Shane Willis.
Hello, it's Shane Willis, Pensacola real estate expert, bringing you today's episode. Hope you had a good weekend. I did. I got a couple of emails from some listeners that I opened last night, asking me where Friday's episode was. That I was, I missed the day. I like it. I'm actually getting listeners that are calling me out, saying, "Hey, you skipped a day. What's going on? You okay?" Well. But I assume every one of those listeners were out of the area and not here, because most of the locals know, and most everyone that lives here knows, that this past weekend was Blue Angel weekend. So Friday, I was actually out at the beach for the practice. So I took the day off. Imagine that. I actually took a day off. Wasn't able to take it off on the actual day. Saturday I couldn't get, because we had about 7 houses I had to show. So I had to work on Saturday, but Friday we actually took off. Enjoyed the practice right there at the beach. Had a good time with some friends. So that's where it was. If you wanted to see it, did we hit Infographic Friday? Yes, you can see it. It's actually in the blog section. It talks about staging, and I actually linked that particular infographic with an older podcast. I want to say episode 7 or 8, so way back there, 100 and some odd episodes ago, where I did an interview with a stager out of Texas, Dallas, Texas. She was one of the biggest stagers there, and we had a nice interview. And this was, 4 years ago. I want to say I did that interview. So, great listen. And she's one, I think it's Homestar Staging. And she is big on, there's a difference between staging to sell and staging to dwell. That was her statement out of that whole thing. So it's a nice listen. It's not 5 minutes. I want to say it was 30 or 40 minutes, but it was a good interview and a lot of good information. So that is there at the blogs. It's shanewillis.com/blogs. Today, we're going to start the week off. As I bumped into some people, of course, me and 50,000 of my closest friends were out there at the beach this weekend. What'd they say? Casino Beach was full Saturday by like 6:15 in the morning. It was crazy. Anyways, I did bump it, and of course real estate comes up. Anywhere I go, real estate comes up. Even if I'm not trying to talk about real estate, somebody goes, "Hey, I got a couple questions for you." There's a misconception I have said multiple times from buyers on multiple episodes, and I'm just going to say it again today because I got new statistics for you. You do not need 20% down to buy a home. As a first-time home buyer, you do not need to save 20% down to buy a home. That misconception is there. A lot of people are trying to get around the PMI, and it winds up costing the extra $80 for PMI. They're paying an extra $120 in rent. That's a real example. Someone that I actually ran numbers with. They're paying an extra $120 in rent, but they were worried about the extra $80 in PMI. And you're stepping over dollars to get to pennies here. But I want to give you data, because I know it's not just me saying this. I always back up my claims with data. According to the Realtors Confidence Index from the National Association of Realtors, 61% of first-time home buyers purchased their homes with down payments below 6% last year. Let me read that again. 61% of first-time home buyers bought their home last year with less than 6%, not even close to 20%. People still believe you need 20% down. March, 71% of the first-time buyers and 54% of all buyers put less than 20% down. And let me clarify what first-time home buyer means. It's kind of a loose term when it comes to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac's definition of it. Basically says if you have not owned a home in 3 years, you're a first-time home buyer. You may have owned a home before, but if you haven't owned one in 3 years, no, you're a first-time home buyer. And that's owned a home, which could be different than an investment property. I didn't say you had to own a property. And I'll give an example. So many of you know that have listened to the podcast, you know that when the crash happened, I actually owned a mortgage company, so my entire income went away. I went from making about $35,000 a month to making nothing. So needless to say, I lost my home in the foreclosure. I had to rent for quite a few years. All right. In the meantime, I did own property. I had rentals that had tenants in there that had been in there forever. I had one rental when my wife and I decided to move back up here to Pensacola from Tampa. We had a rental here that we thought we were going to move into, but the lady begged us to renew the lease. And I said, well, I got to bring it up to rental price. And she said, hey, I'll sign a 3-year lease. I'm not going anywhere, and I'll pay you full rental price. Well, I can't turn that. I mean, mentally, I just couldn't turn that down. So I rented. I was weird being, a landlord and a tenant of somebody's. But sometimes that situation comes up. Financially, I couldn't buy because my credit was not going to allow me because I just had a foreclosure. I had to let that time pass. So I rented for about 3 years. Actually, I think we rented for almost 4. Okay. So when I was able to get back into a house again, I was considered a first-time home buyer. So if I looked at these statistics that I just told you about all first-time home buyers being under 6%, or what did it say, 61% of them being under 6%, and 71% being under 20%, I would be classified as that first-time home buyer in that situation. There's a lot of times that comes up, especially in our area. I just helped a client earlier this year. Just to give you another example, I helped a client earlier this year who had been stationed in Japan for the last 3 years. So they owned a home when they were in Virginia Beach. They sold it. They were in Japan for 3 odd years. So when they come back, they were able to qualify as a first-time home buyer. And guess what? They did not have to put down 20%. So that misconception that you have to put down 20% needs to get busted somehow, some way. I don't know how, but I'm going to keep preaching it. Since it's my podcast, I can do that. All right. Enough Monday morning preaching. That's all I got for you today. As always, if you have not subscribed to get the tips, tricks, the infographics, everything that we do, unless it's Blue Angel Weekend and I didn't do the infographic, get over to 5minutesinrealestate.com. That's 5minutesinrealestate.com. Also, if you haven't subscribed to get updated when I update these podcasts, go to your listener of choice, Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, whatever. Hit subscribe, give me a thumbs up, give me a heart. I always like those. Those make me feel all warm and fuzzy. Yeah, send me a nice comment. Be nice. And finally, as always, I don't ever ask for money for these. It does cost me money to put them together, but I don't ask you to pay me anything. I do ask that if I bring you value on this or any other episode, though, that you share it on social media. Have a great Monday.